Okay, this is taken from Franz Hartmann's Magic White and Black. This is the 8th edition of this book. It is fantastic read so far. It's very short, and I think it's actually about how many pages? Oh, 300 basically, literally 2 pages off. So here's probably one of the best quotes that I've gotten out of it so far. And this isn't even the full page. Franz Hartmann writes, "The character of an oak exists before the acorn begins to grow, but the growing germ attracts from earth and air such elements as it needs to produce an oak. The soul of a child exists as such before the physical form of the child is born into the world, and during its life, the form it may attract from the spiritual atmosphere, the elements to which its aspirations and tendencies reach. Each seed will grow best in the soil that is best adapted to its constitution. Each human monad existing in the subjective state will be attracted at the time of its incarnation to its parents, whose qualifications furnish the best soil for its own tendencies and inclinations, and whose moral and mental attributes correspond to its own." I read that 3 times, but it only cut once. Okay, so further expanding on that, now what this means is it's taking a few things into account. I think the biggest thing is to understand that coincidence does not exist and that fate is really the way of the universe. Oh, let me see this. So when we take into account that it says before you even get here, you've kind of already decided that this is the best place in time, however or wherever that is, that I can learn the lesson or become the person that I am naturally geared towards being. You see that in a lot of lessons, pain is usually the best teacher. Sad to say, you don't learn much without challenge. And so those who have the most challenging lives also have lives where they can learn the most. And if you are somewhat of a philosopher and your goal is to be as connected with yourself spiritually as possible, well, sad to say, a lot of the times you're going to be put in situations that challenge your faith in God, challenge your faith in yourself, and really kind of almost put you in like a sort of mental hellscape where either you choose to become a victim of your circumstances and externalize all responsibility to other people and essentially scapegoat using other people to scapegoat or skirt aside any sort of blame, or you're going to be the type of person that says, hey, look, you know what, all of this adversity is just turning me into a stronger person. I am going to use this to my advantage. It's one of those things where if you could make it so that your life is like the gym, because in the gym, if you want to grow muscles, you can't sit around. You have to voluntarily go and challenge yourself. That's one of the hardest parts about going to the gym is you are literally walking into something saying, I'm going to deal with the pain for a little bit because I'm no longer a victim of my circumstances. I am becoming the person taking action so that my body can grow big, strong muscles. And so if you can figure out a way to turn life into one big gym, which sort of life would you choose? Would you choose one where you're born with $1 billion, or not even that? Funny enough, you can get even cheaper than that. You're you're born with parents that give you everything. Even when you're 50 years old and your parents are 80, they've left you a trust fund. They're still babying you. There's very little challenge, and anytime you fail, if you even get that far, they're always there to pick you up. And that you don't ever learn the fundamentals of if you do fail and hit rock bottom, here's how you start. Here's how you start from actual ground zero up versus having somebody bail you out, maybe paying your rent if you're late on it and stuff like that. Look at your life. Is your life full of hardship? Are your parents overbearing, making sure that you never fully fail? Not that you have to, but take a look at your life right now. And if we know that failure is the only way that we're going to learn, and we also know that before we even get here, we have chosen this life in order to turn us into the things that we naturally are geared towards becoming, then what things are you avoiding in your life that are things that if you were to attack them, usually if you're afraid of them and you were to attack them, those end up leading you towards the person you're meant to become. But what are those things? What do they look like? I suggest you write them down. And if you are somebody who is attacking those things, take a look, sit back, relax, and actually kind of take inventory of, okay, if I am running towards the things that are going to help me grow, what are these things kind of steering me into becoming? Because if you have an idea of what you want to become and what all of these things are kind of steering you towards becoming, then the picture and sort of you have to worry less about the reason why things are happening and more so almost look forward to it. You're like, oh, okay, just like clockwork, I expected this to happen because, well, if I want to be freaking world's best barista, then I know that, or if I want to make the world's best coffee shop, then I know that I'm going to be up against people like Starbucks. This is the challenge here. If we're a small company, what does that allow us to do? These are all things that people who are in a victim mindset would see as a bunch of challenges and reasons to not do something. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to become the strongest or the most cunning or the most adaptable version of yourself, then these are all things that need to happen. They're not like electives. They have to happen in that way. And so where free will comes into play is whether or not you choose to do it, whether or not you choose to spend this life seeing yourself as a victim or a person of action, and picking which ones or which route you actually want to take action on. Maybe you want to save the hardest part for last or the hardest part for the first. Who knows? But that is your free will to choose. And going back to the acorn is a germ that attracts everything in its vicinity or everything in the best soil that it's planted in to then become an oak. Please realize that as you start or as you're on, maybe you haven't just started, maybe you've been on it for a few years, but while you're on this journey, um, don't get so caught up on making the right choice or the perfect choice. I should say that. Don't focus on making the perfect choice. The best thing about being human or deciding that this is where I'm going to be and I chose this before I even got here is you have this sort of built in buffer that no matter what route you take, automatically what's working in the background is you're like a magnet attracting all of the opportunities that are by default going to turn you into the person that you are meant to be. Now that comes to rejecting certain opportunities because you do need to learn discernment instead of just taking anything that's given to you. But that's also realizing the scope of some things so that you don't sit up and not realize the depth of opportunity that you may have thrown off because it looked too hard or you didn't look too deep into it or give enough thought and just immediately wrote it off as just, oh, this is a waste of time. Because a lot of people write off things that aren't actually waste of time as a waste of time. Maybe it's a cashier. It's not as simple as just counting change and saying have a good day. Maybe it's something as simple as learning sales on the lower end or a lower pressure environment. If somebody's at the cash register and they're saying, hey, I want to put this back, ask them why. What's wrong with the product? Is there something that we can do better? Can we get you an alternative? These are things that if you want to become the world's best salesman or a good speaker and you've got social anxiety, well, you should be a cashier because that is the job for you where you don't got to sell cars. There's no freaking big job on the line. You can be the crappiest little salesperson, but it's all low pressure. And that's not a waste of time. Let me see here. But damn, that was short. I gotta make that was short as hell. Well, I mean, that was only a page. There's gonna be more. I'm probably gonna end up reading this as an audiobook and turning it into some chapters for the channel. But there's the first video. Peace.